just sort of cover some of the legal issues that arise, or the way that these things have been dealt with. First of all, the difference between traffickers and smugglers is not something that I ever thought of. It's sort of, the words are used interchangeably, even though they shouldn't be. And if you do think about it, trafficking connotes something different than smuggling. Trafficking is usually forcing people into doing something, such as the sex trade, or bringing workers in and forcing them to stay in the basement, as Mac was talking about, and taking their money, the money that they earn from working, in order to pay off having brought them to Canada. That, to me, is trafficking. Smuggling is bringing people into the country because they need to seek safe haven. I'm sorry, I didn't want to breathe on it. I woke up this morning with a bad cold, and I didn't want to really cancel, so I won't breathe on this thing. I'll just try and speak louder. So anyways, I looked up the definitions, and what it says about trafficking is to deal illegally, or trade or deal in a commodity. I think it does entail a form of coercion when you use it in terms of people. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's clandestine. It may be that what the person's going to do in Canada is clandestine, but often they come in on a valid passport with a valid visa arranged. It's just that they're not going to do that kind of work. So there's, for the reason for that, they came into Canada. Smuggling is defined as importing or exporting to avoid paying duties, bringing something in secretly against the law. When you think of that, it has an element of clandestineness, that you're sneaking something in order to avoid having to address the law that applies to it. But when you think of that, those terms, in terms of the legislation, and the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act now has provisions that make it a criminal offense to organize entry of people into Canada and to smuggle people. So under 117 of that act, it says no one shall knowingly organize, induce, aid, or abet the coming into Canada of one or more persons who are not in possession of a visa, passport, or other document required by this act. That's the organized entry. And then the other one, trafficking of persons, no one shall knowingly organize the coming into Canada of one or more person by means of abduction, fraud, deception, or use or threat of force or coercion. So if you think of the boat, for example, the Tamil boats that have come recently, they certainly wouldn't fit within the second definition, the trafficking of persons, because it wasn't by means of threat of force or coercion. It may have been fraudulent, but it wasn't fraudulent in relation to Canada. And that's the problem with the other provision as well, when you actually look at it. They're not knowingly inducing the aiding and abetting of someone to come into Canada who's not in possession of a visa required by the Act, because refugees don't need visas. Refugees can make refugee claims at the border. They're entitled by law to do that. They cannot be penalized for doing it. So if you think of it, if you think it through logically, they shouldn't be found guilty. The captain of the Ocean Lady, or the one that was before, should not be found guilty of either organizing entry into Canada or trafficking of persons, because they don't fit within the definition. I'm not sure that that's actually, oh, it's better on this side. I'm not sure that that's actually an argument that's been made, but I can tell you that in terms of Canadian law, people have been convicted under those provisions and under the criminal code. So when I sort of looked up the case law around how smugglers, or what we call smugglers, have been treated by the courts, back in '92, the ones involved in assisting the Sikhs come into Canada in '92 got 15 months. Then in 1999, the individuals who assisted the Chinese, remember the Fujian Chinese that came into Canada off the coast? Well, they were all off the coast. Off the west coast of Vancouver in August of '99. They got 26 months plus time served, which ended up being 4 years. So in the space of less than 10 years, the penalty more than doubled in terms of what they were charged with. In 2002, in a case that went to the Quebec Court of Appeal but doesn't appear to have gone up to the Supreme Court of Canada, a person who assisted Bengalis in being smuggled into Canada in order to make refugee claims argued that it was a religious tenet of his to assist people who were in need of protecting their lives, in order to protect the lives. And the reason he lost the case, it was interesting, was that the court found it wasn't established on the facts that their lives were at risk in terms of bringing the people to Canada, not that the defense couldn't be sustained in another case. So I think the door is still open for some people to be able to establish, if they are charged with these kind of offenses, that it was a necessity, whether for religious reasons or reasons of conscience. You can use the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. What I think is interesting, though, in terms of, I'm supposed to be talking about Bill C-49, when you look at that bill, which will not pass, and one of the things I think that's important to realize is it will come back in another form, and I don't think it matters whether it's this Harper government or whether it's Ignatieff government or even whether it's a Layton government. They're all on the same page in terms of going after smugglers. I think there is a difference in relation to the victims, the victims of persecution in their home country that use smugglers to come to Canada. I think that the NDP and the Liberals are much more open to ensuring that legislation doesn't penalize them for having to seek safe haven in Canada. The Conservative government, or the Reform government, wants to penalize those people as well. 20 minutes, 2 minutes. But in terms of that bill, what it would do, the bill that died that will come back, what it would have done was increase penalties and make minimum penalties for persons who are involved in smuggling, but really it was an attack on the victims. What it provided for was a year detention for anybody who was designated as coming in through the services of a smuggler. They could go back to 2009 and designate people as falling within that group. And I don't know if they go collect them and put them all in jail for a year, but they certainly had the power to do it under this legislation if it passed. The thing that really bothers me, and what Matt was saying about the small victories that we have, is, it's a constant fight to maintain the victories that you have. Like, we went up to the Supreme Court of Canada on arbitrary detention under the Immigration Act, and we won. I was involved in a case in which there was like 37 lawyers from all the different human rights groups involved in that case, the Sharkawi case, and actually it was Omri on the detention issue, and the Supreme Court said you can't put a person in jail and not have a review of the need to detain. So we win it in 2007, and what do we get? A new law that puts them in jail for a year without a review of the need to detain. Like, it's just, what do you do with that? It doesn't matter. They don't listen. They don't respect human rights. They don't listen. They don't even listen to the courts. So it really is an ongoing struggle that we have to continue to be involved in. The other thing that it would have done, this bill, which I think is important to know, is it would have prevented people from becoming residents. So the person's on the boat, they're in a designated group, they get recognized as a refugee, they got a wife and kids in the home country, they can't apply for landing for 5 years. What are they going to do with the wife and kids? They're going to put them on the next boat, because they're not going to be able to get them to Canada. That's the kind of mean-spirited nature of this kind of legislation. It was an attack on refugees, not an attack on smugglers. The smugglers was just window dressing in terms of trying to stop refugees from coming in. The last thing I will say is I think you got to look at it historically. We've had events in Canada where we have had memorials or celebrations of people who were, not celebrations, but the memorials to the turning away of the Sikh boat, the Komagata Maru in 1914, the Sikhs that were sent back to India and ended up, 26 of them I think were killed. The St. Louis in 1939 that Canada turned away. The people that helped those persons come to Canada then, the Underground Railway, are seen as heroes historically in Canada. But the ones that brought the Tamils to Canada, fleeing persecution in Sri Lanka, are seen as criminals. Like, is it 50 years from now we're going to start seeing them as heroes too? They're the same. They're no different than the guy that was trying to save the Jews in World War II. Some of them may be taking money for it, but then so have been others in the past. Some of them may not be taking money, but they're not criminals in terms of what they're doing. So.